Okay, it says we're live, and the one thing I'm going to do while we're doing that, and you should do this first, by the way. I just want you to know this, just for future, for anyone else that does this. You should turn off your air conditioner before you start if you had cranked it down to some freezing level so that it's not on in the background. But luckily, I have the tech. I actually can do it right from my phone. So I'm doing that. Okay. That'll go off. So if you hear my air conditioner, you just go, wow. All right. So welcome. So Don Baarns here. And of course, my friend Johnny Heller is sitting here in the other window. And we're sitting about 3,000 miles apart. And we decided, well, I decided, I'm using some new technology to do this. And when you have guests, this is the most complicated setup I could ever come up with, which is not smart to do when you're going live, but I did it anyway. I did not sleep real well last night. We got it all working. And it's going to give us some great things moving forward. And what I want to make sure you understand is, for those of you who know that I'm somewhat of a tech guy, note that every time I start something new, there is a process. There are some things that go wrong. There are some things that frustrated me. But I'm taking the longer view that today will be as perfect as I can be today. It won't be perfect, but we will end up having a much better situation after I've done 2 or 3 of these, because we have laid a foundation for excellence. Even though today Johnny will look great, we'll have a great time, we'll answer a lot of questions, but there are some details that I'm not thrilled with. It should have had his name and his URL below him. It should have had a couple other details to be fun, so I will tell you how to get a hold of him. So, Johnny Heller, welcome.
I'm not
And
even wearing my best t-shirt, man. Yeah. Yeah.
so, for those of you who don't know, Heller's done over 1,000 books. He has been running seminars, best I know, 8 years, 10 years, doesn't really matter. But he's worked with thousands of people in person, in one-on-one situations, in seminars where both he's run them, other people have invited him. He's worked with crazy number of people. And the one thing that's fascinating about him is he works with people that are brand new. And then he gets coaching himself, and he collaborates with people that also have hundreds or thousands of books that they've done. So he learns from other people as well as helps other people. And it's just crazy the background that he has. So, Johnny, welcome to the broadcast. They Ask Me Anything. How are you doing today?
I'm doing very well. Thank you. I don't just so everybody knows, I don't see any questions coming up. I don't have the same screen you do. So Don is going to be handling all the questions. But please, the questions can be for Don as well as for me. Happy to, where this is Ask Us Anything, and you certainly can. Some of you in the New York area, I'll see you tonight at the APA Mixer. Be going to see that. And others I hope to see as time goes on, as we attend workshops and conferences together. Are there questions up there?
Yeah, so we have some questions already. So one of the things is,
Nice.
if you were restarting today, what
Oh,
would
Lord.
you consider doing differently from when you started?
That's a great question. When I started, you have to understand the business was entirely different than it is now. You can't get into the business today the way I did then. So if I started now, I think I'd be as pissed off as some of you guys. There's so many, there weren't as many people doing the audiobooks in those days. It was a multi-million dollar business when I started. It's a multi-billion dollar business now. Not that I've got any piece of that action, but when I started, I got in. My dear friend, the late great Richard Ferrone, was working at Recorded Books, which at the time isn't the great giant it is now. It was just a much smaller, more family company, and they needed a younger sound that had a lot of energy, but that was an adult. And I just walked into a situation that was tailor made for me. I think the things I wish I had done differently, as my sign says, I wish I'd slowed down some. I was one of the biggest problems I had, and still have, is I'm very excitable. Um, I got I just go too fast sometimes, and that's a problem in the audiobook world because people need to hear the book. They need to hear what you're saying. If you get too fast, they don't have the context of seeing your face, of judging your emotions, where you are, and pulling things out of context. So I went too fast. That was one problem. I also think I didn't know in the beginning that there are still other companies doing. I could have been working for a bunch of companies right away. I didn't investigate. I thought it was another. To be honest, I thought audiobook narration was a stepping stone to my dreamed of career, which was being the second banana in some kind of comedy film. That's what I thought I would end up being.
So one of the
Too short
questions
to be
that
the
did come
lead.
in that I think is fascinating, you and I have talked about offline, is what's your impression of all the kind of crowdsourcing and social media stuff that's going on these days in terms of, I don't know if you've noticed, but every narrator is posting every book they've done. Anyway, what are your thoughts on the social media, like where it's going and what people are doing, and what do you recommend? So let's break down into a couple questions. Number one, what do you think about the current state of social media and how it's impacting narrators?
I think it's become something of a swamp. I think that it's fine to say you've got a book. I do it all the time. New releases. I just did one today. Um, I just got to, the big news is big news, but what you had for breakfast, I don't really give a rat's ass. Um, I just think there's way too much. I mean, and here's part of the thing. We talk about the narrator community, the voiceover community in general, as being very mentoring and supportive. Well, if I'm out there saying, I just did, 15 books. I've got 32 line. I'm booked until 2078. Um, while there's problems there. One, it's probably not true. Two, if I say I'm booked forever, then people who may want to hire me are on social media. They'll say, well, I can't use Johnny because he's booked for the next 50 years. And finally, there are those who aren't booking right now. And I'm not saying you have to, yeah, I think you have to think, how do they feel about what I'm saying? When you put your things up, how happy you are to get a book, that's great. But some people are doing so much that it makes other people feel like they're doing nothing. And many, 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 many audiobook narrators are not type A people. They're shrinking violets, and they have a very difficult time coming out of their shell at all. It doesn't mean they're not gifted actors or gifted narrators, but there's a lot of pressure now. The pressure should be on the actor to be a good storyteller, to be a good actor, not to know how to frame a damned video for Facebook Live. I just think it's taking us out of the real game we should be in, which is being better actors, I
And
think.
one of the questions I'd have on that is, are we supposed to be marketing to other narrators, or are we marketing, or who should we be marketing to? Because I do see a lot of the social media stuff is telling the other narrators what I'm doing, or posting things in groups that are primarily other narrators. I'm
And
not, what are your thoughts on that whole thing?
I have the Johnny Heller Workshop alumni. Anybody who's worked with me who hasn't joined, you're certainly welcome to. But it is a group of obvious narrators and people I've worked with. And every twice bi-monthly on Mondays, I have Monday musings, and you just put out brag your ass off. That's what it's for. Tell everybody what you're doing. Have a great time. But other than that, I think, like today, Todd Goldberg's book came out. Gangsters Don't Die. It's the end of a trilogy. He's a great writer, and I wrote basically that. So the post I did is to build up momentum for that book. It's a release on print as well as audio in the same time, to also give kudos to Todd Goldberg, who's a great writer. Let that author know that I like working with him. Don't say he can't say the same thing to every author. There's a bunch of authors I really like, and I don't say to all of them I like, because then it becomes meaningless. But I do like Todd Goldberg, and he and I are friends online, and he's a good guy. He's a great writer. So my post is to say, thank you for your work. I appreciate your brilliance as an artist, and I'm honored to have been a part of this process. That's fair. And it's also thank you to Highbridge for hiring me. And the first two books were Blackstone, and thanks Blackstone for hiring me. I think that's what the post should be about. Now, if it's a royalty share, Like, I got paid for this. I don't make any money right now for mentioning Todd Goldberg's book. I'm paid. But let's say it's a royalty share. Well, of course I'd like to mention that because I want to build up. I want some loot. That's another good reason. But you got to be careful that what I think you'd be careful, or at least aware of, if not careful, aware of that what you post has to be in celebration of your happiness to work in this field, your concern for others in the field as well. You can get books. Joel Frumpkin posts almost every other day. He gets a great review and he shares that review, but he generally turns it around and says, thanks to the author and thanks to the publisher. And he's very gracious in giving his thanks. I think that takes a sting. If it's all me, 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 I don't think people like that. No one likes that. Today, today I didn't post this. I'll tell you right now, I just got my first official book from Simon and Schuster. They were on my bucket list, and I tracked them down. They finally came and got me, and I'm honored and I'm pleased. I don't know. I haven't read the book yet, so I'm not gonna say what a great thing, but I'm happy I'm doing it. They were on my bucket list, and it's important to have a bucket list.
So do you target, or have you been over your career? Did you kind of start with one publisher and then were you trying to maximize with that one and build relationships? Or, hey, by the way, do relationships matter in this business?
Oh my God, they what an open. Of course no, Don, they don't. Screw all those people. They matter a great deal. You don't have to be best friends with the people who hire you, but you've got to respect them and what they do, and have to build a relationship based on me. I know people. I'll tell you some gossip. I won't mention names, but for example, in a relationship, one of the most important things in an audiobook thing is deadlines. You've got it. So if you're sick or something, generally, you need to know that built into the deadline is some wriggle room because life happens. But if you let a publisher or a rights holder, depending on who you were, know that you are sick and you cannot do what you're going to do, and you need to let them know, right? But then they see you at a party they're at. The same day you tell them too sick to do anything, that's a relationship problem. So yeah, relationships matter. And I know these stories. They're true stories. I know a lot of weird things that you would not expect to happen. The relationship issues. You need to, like, one of the things that I offer or that I am is when people ask me for a check of my sound of my studio here to see the sound, I don't just read something. I tell a joke. It takes a couple of minutes, but a clean joke, nothing too offensive. So, but I want them to know who they're getting, what I'm like. And I think that's they get the sound, but they also get a laugh. That's memorable. That's a way to build a relationship. It's super important because I need to set myself apart from the other 1,700 people or 17,000 people who want the same job I want, and probably charge less.
Well, I do think one of the strengths that I know that you've always had is that you're personable. You're a little bit of a smart aleck in a good way. You and I have, in the very beginning, somehow we figured out very quickly that we're both smart alecks. And I remember you dissing me in public appropriately for things that were right. And we were laughing so hard. And I do think that there's a big deal about people knowing that you're a person, that you can have fun, that maybe you don't take yourself super serious as like a superstar, but you are dead serious about the work and the quality of your work, and you are always working to set yourself apart from everybody else. I think that's a lesson that a lot of other people could learn, simply because there are a billion people that want to do this work.
Yeah,
so there are people constantly sniping, trying to get your next book. They don't know you're going for it too, or the acquisition editor thinks you're the one for it. But I'm going to guess you probably don't audition very much anymore, do you?
See, that's great. Yes, I audition all the time.
Do you?
Almost all the time. You know what's weird? Joanna, my lovely Joanna Parents, my wife, we were talking just the other day. First, yeah, you should audition. There's nothing wrong with auditioning. It's the actor's job. So I don't have any. I mean, what happens now is, let's say Penguin Random House. I work for them reasonably often. They know who I am. Or Blackstone, they know who I am. Once in a while, they'll say, Johnny, this is for you. Here you go. Here's a book. Or Tanta, here's a book for you. More often than not, these days, right now, currently, the author gets a say in who gets hired. Well, the author may not care that Johnny Heller's done 1,000 books and is a golden voice and has a, a shelf full of awards that, need to be dusted. He doesn't care. He doesn't know. I may or may not sound like the voice in his head. If his story reminds him of his best friend in second grade and I don't know that kid and don't sound like him, I may not get that book, and that happens a lot. The audition process isn't just about your acting. A lot of times, if it's the author making the decision, do the best you can, but remember, man, if you don't sound like the voice that man or woman has in their heads, someone who's not even nearly as good an actor as you may get the job because they sound like the person they have in mind, and usually with a lot of vocal fry.
So I have a question. Do you, after you've done the audition, how much energy do you put in waiting for them to call you back? Do you sit by the phone? Do you have a...
No, I don't. I know. It's one and done. I don't care. I mean, if I get it, great. But I mean, here's the thing. They don't always tell you didn't get it. You may in a week or 2 weeks or a year and a half get a note. Oh, we went a different direction is what's said. Meaning that we decided to, hire someone not as good. That was our choice here. That's how I read that. When I say went a different direction, we went with someone not as good as you. That's how I hear that. And I go, all right, that's your choice. But there's no anger because they're going to have other jobs.
Yeah.
And I don't mind. On the other hand, if I have a schedule, let's say I audition for Don Baarns Publishers, and I audition on Monday, and it's Friday, and Lisa Baarns Publishers wants to hire me to do a book, and they have the book. I'll send them and say, listen, I want to let you guys know I'm still want to do this. I'm excited to do it, but I've been offered another book. Here's that time frame. If I say yes to them and you want me, can I still do yours? I'm not trying to rush anybody, so I let them know what's going on because I want a job. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Are we okay sound-wise? I heard you too. Are we good? Something happening? Do I need to make a change?
I have a question that came in. I want to switch gears here.
Okay.
What are the so Tom asked, what are the fundamental mistakes most VO performers have to outgrow or unlearn if they're going to do audiobooks?
Oh, great. Is that Tom Deere, by the way?
No, Tom Barkley.
Tom Barkley. Okay, I know Tom. All right, so here, I don't know if you have to outgrow. You have to remember that every genre in the acting world, particularly in the voiceover world, there are so many options, is different. A car ad doesn't read like an animation ad. An e-learning doesn't. Yeah, they're all different. So what you have to do is consider what the job is. And all of them, the only thing that's the same is it's always acting. You always have the actor question. Who am I? Who am I speaking to? What am I saying this? Why am I saying that? What do I want? Those are all the same. In the audiobook world, the difference is as opposed to a commercial. Commercials 15, 30, 45, or 60 seconds long, generally. In that time, this is what has to happen. This is the point to get across. This is your level. In audiobooks, your commitment to what's happening is always at level 10, but your pace and excitement and energy may not be a 10 all the time. It's a 10-hour book, not a 10-second bit. So you need to pace yourself. You also need to really, really understand something about the human condition. How do people really sound? Or if it's nonfiction, what am I trying to say? What do I care about? There's different questions. So you don't need to outgrow anything from any other genre. You just need to understand audiobooks is a different genre. And you need to understand what it asks of you. I don't think you ever have to outgrow, or you have to make some changes based on what the author wrote in any genre.
So you'd kind of consider it more voiceover plus. You take what you're already doing, you'll add on to it. You'll have multiple ways of
You
doing
may
it.
subtract from it. I mean, it's really everything you need to know is in the script.
Okay.
Everything. There's nothing that you need that isn't there.
That's super cool. All right, I've got another question. I don't know. This is Brybar VO. So for someone who is completely intimidated by long form, oh, hold on. If you're completely intimidated by long form, because probably you've been doing VO for a while, and it just seems like, oh man, how do I do it? How do I get over that? I'm paraphrasing this question here. So how do I move forward when I've been doing all these short things that are 30 seconds, 60 seconds, a couple minutes, and work my way up to where I'm comfortable doing something that's multiple hours rather than something that's, really, really short? Because it just seems intimidating at first.
There's a number of ways to handle this. I'll do this as simple as I can. I think that this individual who said that and people who think that, for them, it's true. It is intimidating because they've said as much. On the other hand, I'll bet you any single one of the people who say that, if I said, if we got together and had a couple beers and started sharing stories, and all of a sudden they told me the funniest, we got to one story, then they told me about the funniest Christmas they ever had, or a first date, or just, I don't need to put just the stories. I'll bet they could give me a 20 to 30-minute story. And I bet they do it every single day. And I bet they're never even intimidated. All we're asking for is that. And a 10-hour book isn't done in a single day.
Right.
It's 2 hours for every finished hour. So if you're in the booth 3 hours, on average, you have an hour and a half done with some breaks in there. Why can't you tell me a story for 15, 20, 30 minutes and then take a break and then come back and be in the same place? We do it every single day of our lives, for all our lives, whether you're shy or not. I just think any problems we have, here's your equipment, Don. Here's your script. Here's your computer. Here's your Studio One. Here's everything. What can possibly go wrong? You can go wrong because you said I'm intimidated.
Yeah.
Well, then I am.
Well, okay, fantastic. First off, for those of you intimidated by anything tech-wise, I had a nightmare getting this set up. Johnny will tell you I was, not panicked, but I certainly was. We were testing things, and I'm not loud enough here, and he's too loud, and all that kind of
I
stuff.
was very helpful in setting this up for him.
We were doing a bunch of testing before. Anyway, we're going to be better every time, but it is the same thing, where just because I don't have it perfect this time, did I let it intimidate me? No. Didn't mean I wasn't nervous or uncomfortable at how close we got to broadcast time, and I have to deliver something. And I look at this, and if you knew how many little details in the background, I'm thinking, oh, this is terrible, this is terrible, this is terrible. But at some point, you have to go, you know what? This is the best I can do for today. I got hired for the gig. Johnny called me, hey, let's do this thing. And I said, cool, let's do it. We make it happen, and then we improve on it. And there's no way to be as comfortable as Johnny is until you've done a bunch of it. And maybe you don't take a 10-hour book to begin with, but take a 4-hour book to begin with. If long form is intimidating to you, then find some titles that are shorter, and then you can be comfortable. Oh, go ahead. Yes, sir.
I got to break in. It's not. Don't take a short title to work less. One of the problems with shorter titles, nothing wrong with a short book. Go ahead and do them, but you don't make much money on them because people don't usually use their Audible credits on short books. They just don't. They don't see if my credit can give me a 15-hour book, or I'm listening to all 33 hours of Sherlock Holmes for my credit. Why do I want a 13-minute book? Right. So you may not do it. So you can practice with those. And let me throw one thing out because I don't want this just the Johnny Heller hour. Don Baarns, ladies and gentlemen, is a tech wizard. So let me ask you. I don't know if there's any questions for you in the queue because I don't see it, but let me ask you one. Mm-hmm. You are marvelous in so many aspects of this game: marketing, text, wizardry, all kinds of things. I believe Don is probably a warlock because he can do magic and stuff. How do you? I know I have my personal experiences with you, but how do you deal with someone like me who's something of a tech Luddite and has a real, the fear you have about dentists and sitting next to insurance salesmen on airplanes? That's kind of what I feel like with all this tech gadgetry. And Joanna and I had been trained in Pro Tools when we started. That's what I worked on in my home studio. And there's just too many bells and whistles and things and I don't know how to fix things. So I got hold of Don. I can't remember how that all happened, but we became friends. And he walked me through and installed Studio One. And my Studio One's different than Joanna's Studio One because she's more tech savvy than I. So Don, how do you approach it? How do you deal with people who have different levels of experience and or fear?
Yeah, well, I think it's normal. Here's my take on coaches, which I consider myself one, but every good coach usually has some things in their life that they're either getting coached on or they're learning. They're constant learners. So I relate to people who are intimidated or uncomfortable with the tech. and I do have a performance background, so that when I started this whole thing, I started my life as a performer. I played music, and I had to get good at a couple tech things that nobody talks about when you're a young musician. I was a drummer. I learned how to set up equipment. That is the most unglamorous, pain in the rear end stuff to do. So what do you have to do? Oh, I used to joke, I'm part-time musician, part-time moving company. Now, it wasn't a funny joke because nobody got the fact that that meant that I was always moving equipment. They just thought I had 2 gigs, I had a side hustle there. But the reality is that was not a tasteful part of the job. I became a musician to play music and had to learn how to be really good at some technical things in order to be a musician. In the old days, you had to set up all your stuff. So those systems carried over. And my wife, I actually have 2 people in my family who are very, very strong. My wife's a great narrator. My adult son earns multiple 6 figures doing voiceovers. He's there's times where I've said, hey, is Donnie really my son too? Now, my wife doesn't like that when I say that. He has so many attributes that are mine, but nonetheless, he did not like the tech for the first 5 years, and I did all this tech work in the first. So I learned how to deal with 2 people directly in my family who they're both performers. They both have a performance background. They did not want to deal with the tech. I did 100%. And I kind of used to have the old Mikey test for those that are old enough to remember Life cereal. Mikey likes it. And if they were able to do it, then it would work. And I generalized it. And I've always specialized. As a young drummer, I was teaching older people because I had a mentor who was awesome, and I would be teaching people that were always older than me when I was a young guy teaching drums. I was teaching music. So when it comes to the tech, the reality is I just see my job as making it that Johnny Heller does not have to think about the tech or worry about the tech or be bothered by the tech. Or, I mean, ultimately the goal is Johnny's not thinking about it on a day-by-day basis, nor should anybody else be. If you're thinking about the tech, then your setup is weaker than it could be. And some of it, I got intimidated by this thing we're doing today, and I worked through it knowing that this setup, going through it, watch us do this over a couple times, you'll see it get better and better and better. And it's like every other thing in life. Everybody else has something that they're much better than me. By the way, I'm learning pickleball. Okay. So I'm hiring a coach to teach me. I'm starting to practice.
Really? You can't just
Yeah, you can't just do it.
you
No.
can't just come on.
Yeah.
It's badminton.
It's like everything else. So and I'd like coaches who are out learning some other thing where they are uncomfortable because they are not good at it naturally. And I've always done things that I'm not good at naturally, so I relate to people who don't. So I have go ahead. You have a follow-up question?
I'm going to add some about coaching. Just because you brought it up, I'm not going to do a whole thing on it right now. I have blogs and things on it, but be wary about coaches. I mean, I don't know who Don's pickleball coach is or how one looks into that, but you need to make sure your coach knows what they're doing. There are I don't think I can't remember the name of the person, so I won't be calling anyone out. But I saw a social media post a few months back, and the person in the post was upset that nothing they were doing was working. The voiceover game wasn't working, the commercial game, the on-camera game, everything was just, and very, very upset and very beside themselves. They decided, I guess I'll become a life coach.
Well,
which
maybe.
Which I thought, well, geez, that should work out well too.
But here's the weird thing about that. If that person had the right attitude, they could become a life coach, meaning a lot of times I'm really good at things because I've made more mistakes than most people combined on the tech side of it. And if somebody had a tough life or had a tough situation and they learned from it and they had the attitude, or they were around other people and they turned their attitude around. We all have bad days. We have points where it's like, I'll never succeed at life or this or whatever. We all have those moments. Doesn't matter who we are. And I think a great life coach could be somebody who had some bad days or a bad week or a bad month, if They take the time to turn it around and figure out what did they have to do attitude-wise? Who did they need to get help from? How do they go through that? And I see the Johnny Hellers, one of the things is behind the scenes. I've watched you with your New England narrators retreat a few days before be a little stressed out about stuff that was not working. People were coaches who all say they're
Wait
going to
till
be
this
there
year.
at the last minute, sometimes have life events, and they
Yeah.
cancel at the last minute, and you're filling spots. And I see you going, I don't want to say going crazy. I see you handling an awful lot and juggling a crazy amount. And then by the time the event starts, you're like that duck where under the water you're paddling like crazy, but everybody thinks, oh, this is, anybody could do this. But you worked your butt off, and I, behind the scenes, got to see the stressful moments. That's what makes you such a good coach. You have life experience, and you learn to deal with both when it's easy and when there's some adversity in the situation. Any follow up on that?
Well, no, well said by you. No, there there is when you plan a big event, the Johnny Hiller Splendiferous that we had over the summer during the APA get-togethers. There's some big events. Scott Brick and I do the Business of Audiobook. We'll be doing it in LA in conjunction with the Audio Awards that'll be out there this year. And the New England retreat, which starts next month in October, we still have maybe 3 or 4 places left in the offsite hotel. If anyone wants, we may have one on site. So I'll let you know. We have doubles on site, and there's a young lady whose roommate. The young lady isn't even in. I don't know if she's a young lady or not, but the lady in the room doesn't know that her roommate just canceled. So I need a woman to come on site and stay in that room. Maybe we can talk about that. DM me, but things like that. Like I have to deal with that. People have food allergies and needs. I got to make sure that's taken care of. We did karaoke, had a great time. As you know, last year karaoke was just so much fun. So, but the sound wasn't right. So this year, Mike Johnson is bringing a karaoke machine. He's going to handle it, all that stuff. So you start doing things. You always make changes all the time. I'm going to have some of the publishers do some coaching during the directed readings. That's a new thing we're going to work out. All that stuff happens. You always want to make it a worthwhile expenditure because there's only so much money in every actor's bank account that they can spend on workshops and coaching. And this is not cheap. It's expensive, not as expensive as others, but I try to keep it as low as I can to justify. But man, there's a lot of stuff. And you want to make sure that people get their money's worth, both new, medium, and new, middle experience and very experienced narrators all can gain so much. Like you get a guy like Bob Sauer who's coming. He's done a gazillion books. Fantastic human being. And he's coming because he learned stuff. I learned stuff. As you mentioned earlier, one of the things I really like to do, if you and I do one-on-one coaching, I know what I'm going to say to you, and we're going to work, and I'll find out what I need to say to you. It'll be fine. I guarantee it'll be a good experience. But when I get a group together, I get these other voices, other thoughts, other people with their take on things. Paul Rubin and I did a New York workshop, and we had different ways of coming to the script and approaching the script and doing things. And it was fascinating. One of the best workshops I've ever done, just Paul and I. And these group things where we all get a chance to speak and you get to hear how other successful narrators / coaches work. And it opens my eyes. It opens everyone's eyes. Johnny Heller is not my path is not the only path. It just isn't. It can't be.
Well, I have a question that came in. James Romick asked, so at what point do you know or understand or realize that it was time to hang out your coaching shingle? And we see this all the time. There's people sometimes who have 3 books or 10 books, and now they're saying, hey, I'm a coach. And then there are some people that have done hundreds and they don't coach. Some of them should, some of them should. So what's your criteria? And I want to follow that up. I've got a follow-up question to that, but how should someone know when they should start coaching?
All right. I think you have to have a body of success in the industry in which you're coaching. And I think you have to be I think ask people you care about if they think you should also. Maybe coach some people as a friend and see if you're called to it. It's much different than acting. Much different. I'm going to say this in a way that's politic. A lot of people get a lot of work these days who I think suck. I listen. I'm like, well, I don't get it. Now, I won't say who those people are. Some are coaching, some are not. I'm like, how? I don't understand. Also, if you've worked with me for a long time and you've done the New England, in my New England workshop or the Johnny Out Splendiferous, I do not like to take someone who's been with me 3, 4 years and really done some great things and suddenly elevate them to now the coaching staff, because that looks like I'm running a school for coaches. And that's not what I'm doing. And that's why I don't generally do it. However, if you, like James Romick, who asked the question, James is wonderful with, I believe his thing is Reaper. He's also a really good actor. I've been in a show with him. James is a great actor. Now, is James ready to coach people in audiobooks? I'd have to listen more of his audiobooks, to be honest. But is he ready to coach people as an actor? Absolutely. And he's coaching people now on Reaper. He has a way of speaking that people tend to respond to. He's articulate. I mean, so there's some people are called to it. When I started coaching, I think I'd been in the business. I'd done at least 200 or 300 books before I even started. And it was mostly people asked if I started coaching some people. Then they said, hey, would you put together a workshop? Because they're coming to New York anyway. And that's what began everything for me. It's also, I think it has to be not a money-making thing. Like, I don't lose money on it, but I don't do it for the money.
Right.
If I did it for the money, then I just think I could do other things that make me a lot more money than that. That's not what motivates me. I want, when my career is over or I'm long gone, I want people to remember that I did good things in this community, that I helped forge this community, that I helped make it possible for people to feel welcomed and nurtured, and they could learn and grow in an environment structured to allow that to happen. That's what I like. That's what I'm about.
Awesome.
So I guess
I'm going to change subjects here. And I just had one here that I just, one of the people was asking, so royalty share. If I'm just starting this business, how many royalty shares should I do before I try to go approach the major publishers? I'm paraphrasing that question. And here we go. So how long do you recommend newer narrators do royalty share books? Is there a point where we should graduate beyond them? Do you think more experienced narrators doing them devalues the industry? What are your thoughts on royalty share overall?
If you royalty share, you can make a hell of a lot. Joe Hempel's big on royalty share. Jeff Kafer. There's a lot of actors who make really. I make $300-400 a month royalty share on books I did 70, and I'm just starting a royalty share right now. I am right now. So when you do royalty share when you think the book's going to make some money. And also the inherent in this question, and inherent in almost any question about this, is you all need to stop looking at ACX as the minor leagues. It's not single A, double A, or triple A. It is working. Now, I'm going to advise you not to do a shitty book on ACX just for the experience, because you'll become experienced in doing shitty books. I don't know if you want that. It's not a resume builder. When you pick a book, if it's royalty share, you need first a topic that you like, a book cover that looks good, a marketing program, all that kind of stuff. Karen Commons, God bless her, of the Narrator's Roadmap. She has some things out there. You read that and you follow her. There's so many people. He's no longer a friend of mine, but Stephen Cohen has Spoken Realms, which is another place that puts books out, and you can, in the public domain, and you can do things. I mean, there's a lot of opportunities here. You've got to stop thinking that I'm just doing this one. Can I approach a publisher? When you approach a publisher is when you think that you should be working for a publisher. When, if you can join Ahab Talent right now, put up your profile the same way you did in ACX, and you can audition. And if you're right for the job, you're right for the job. And right now, a lot of authors are making the calls, not casting people, and sometimes neither one of them have any acting background anyway. I think a casting person or a publisher, may notice that you have some acting ability. An author may not. An author may say, that's the sound I want.
Cool.
So audition away.
So, and in other words, so can I summarize this? And please. Check me if I'm wrong. Royalty share can be great, and it shouldn't be thought of as the minor leagues. I know a lot of people making good money with that, but they did build that up. That takes many years very often. If you're making $300, that's because you did not specialize in that, and you have done mostly per finished hours. But I do know some narrators that when they calculate their return on investment on some good books, They made 2, 3, 4, 5 times the amount they would have made, but it took them 3 to 5 years to get that full return.
It's passive income, which doesn't exist in our business except for royalty shares.
Okay.
When you do a commercial, you get paid for the session fee. This is union talk. I'm doing union stuff. Then you get residuals. I still get residuals in TV shows I did when I lived in LA. Now, granted, they're only a nickel now,
Right.
but for a while they were a lot. There's no residuals in audiobooks except for royalty shares. And you'll never convince me that residuals are a bad thing.
Right.
Passive income is the best income.
Right. So Tom Barkley said, Johnny, I noticed your sound and your distance from the mic, Neumann, yes, changes. So you're getting closer, but your sound doesn't change much. So how do you make that happen?
I don't. When I'm recording, see, I do this and I kind of hang right here. There's a puppy right at my feet, so I have to be careful. I can't move my chair closer. I'd move my chair closer right now, but then I'd run over his head and I'd have to get a new puppy. And also I'd mess up the studio, be all bloody and hairy. So, in general, which is interesting, the body has a whole lot of fulcrum points. So I can lean forward if I want. I can turn my head. Look, my head will swivel. See, all that stuff happens. So there are things you can do to keep yourself on the mic, even though you're moving a little bit. But also, the people who set this up, I may have knocked this mic because it's on a, what do you call it? What do you call this?
A boom arm.
A boom arm, yeah. I may have knocked that around a little bit, but this studio got set up and fixed. Zane Birdwell, you know Zane? Great guy. He helped me out. Grammy-winning engineer and some other people. This acoustic foam here, it's all new. My friend Bill Lord set me up with that. I gave him measurements for a much larger booth than I had. Because
you want him to work harder.
Just fucking stupid. So this thing, so the sound just happens to be perfect. And I try not to move too much. I may be moving now because I don't really care. I'm on a Zoom thing. I mean, it doesn't,
yeah,
I can dance.
Well,
yeah.
The other thing is I'll answer that question a little bit because he has a really good mic and he has a really quiet space. He's talking pretty consistently and that mic has a really big sweet spot. It's not a shotgun mic. It's the right type of mic that works great. And because he has it facing the right way and once it's set up, he doesn't really have to think about it that much. Now he's starting to say, hey, I got to look at this thing.
I forgot what mic it is.
I know. But that's perfect. Who cares what mic it is when you sound great? It is important at one point during the purchase and the setup. AKG.
AT.
Yeah. Well, we'll talk. So here's the point, though. It doesn't matter. Yeah, he'll look at it and find what he's looking at there.
1840-47.
All right. Okay. But this is the important point. That mic does not make it, meaning that mic is not the key to his success. The room is the key to his success. His acting is the key to his success. And he could replace that with one of the Neumanns. That mic's great. That's an excellent mic. But the room makes a bigger difference. The actor makes a bigger difference. And while it might make me happy that I sound like me or I sound like the way I think I should sound, 98% of that is his acting, his ability to perform, and his ability to stay in a reasonable time space and have that work. It shouldn't be louder or quieter because he moves 6 inches forward or back. Now, I've also seen him. He is smart enough to use the mic and lean in super close for some very intimate things that he needs to do, to hang back when he needs to have something hyper loud occasionally. But the mic is the least important thing once you get past a certain quality level, and his room is the focus to begin with. And because his room is so good, he can do a lot of stuff and have it all sound great. I don't think he pays much attention to it, and I think that's the right thing. He didn't even know what mic he had because he forgets about that after it's set up and in place. That's exactly what you want.
Yep.
What do you have to see about, so AI is becoming a big thing. Are you worried? Are you crying at night? What are your feelings on the AI stuff? Because that's a big conversation that's going on.
It's not something that's going to happen. It's something that's happening. That's one. Two, there may be sections of AI recorded stuff that sound okay. I've yet to hear anything that sounds good overall. I think people who use AI to write, people who use AI to record, people who use AI to create art are ruining art in general, are ruining the humanity that is required to make and appreciate art. I think in terms of a voiceover actor in any of the genres, that the best thing you can do to fight AI, and you need to fight AI, I think, is to be better than AI. I've heard many people who decide to get into audiobooks because they have a good voice, some idiot told them. And so they act a story, and they can't act. They have no acting. You don't have to be a Yale graduate, but it's acting. It's acting. If you're just okay, if you're just reading one word after the other, I just did a blog, 2 blogs on this. There's one, go to the For the Hell of It on my website and you'll see it, or my YouTube channel. I talk about AI. The biggest problem with AI is shitty actors. If the public gets used to hearing crappy recordings, crappy storytelling, they're not going to mind AI because it's just as bad and they'll think that's the norm. If that's what you're doing, cut it out. If you sign a contract that isn't, in the world of audiobooks, there's no excuse to not have a union contract, because you can put it through a paymaster, becomes the union will back you up, and they can't steal you from AI in a union contract. It's in the contract. If they do, the union will fight them in court, not you. If you just sign a contract with Don Baarns AI Productions, and you just do it, and Don just takes my voice, and I said, Don, I need another job. He goes, you already have another job. I just don't need you. Well, that's gonna be a tough court case. All I'm saying is you've got to be a little wise, and you've got to be good at acting. You got to be good at storytelling. Just good enough isn't enough. It just isn't. I'm so tired of people saying they can do my job. When you bring your car into the car guy and he said, well, you need to fix that. If you knew how to do it yourself, you do it. You don't, so you pay them. They're good. Now, whether or not they gyp you or not, you don't even know. But at least they know stuff. They know what, they open the hood. I don't know what any of that shit is. I have no idea. Last time I drove a car was like 15 years ago. I don't know what's it. Last time I drove a car, I rented a car and I got in it and I was sitting in it and the guy came up and goes, why aren't you leaving? I said, I don't know how to make this go, because he didn't have a key. Yeah, it was. I didn't know they made the change. So that's what I know. But if you want to do this and not have AI take your job, then be better than AI. It's really that simple. Up your game. AI can't touch you. That's what I think. And also make sure in your contract it says there's no AI skullduggery. The union contracts all have that, and you can get a union contract, or you can download them. Geez, they're all over all the narrator groups. There's no reason to have your voice and your talent and your creativity stolen and abused and used without you receiving. You can sell to AI. You can do it, and the union will negotiate if you want. You will never work again. So you decide if $300,000 will be good for the next 50 years of your life. I think it won't. Think about it.
Yeah, and so here's another story of a similar thing. When in the 80s, for those of my youth challenged people, friends, in the 80s, drum machines came in, and they took away a bunch of jobs from musicians early on. And what happened was, over time, the whole thing. So first off, the technology matured to the point where the machines can perform and do things that drummers physically can't do. We're limited. I don't know why I didn't create this, but I only have 4 limbs. And the drum machines can play as if they have 6 limbs, 4 hands, and they can do some amazing things. The whole thing went full circle. They actually can outperform a drummer on some things. And so today, you hear a mix. There's plenty of machines that are performing the music that you might like. But then there is a big call for all the musicians. I had a bunch of peers today who are famous because they stuck with it. I went a different direction early in my life, in my 30s, and they stuck with it. They went through that period where the machines were taking a fair amount of business. I'm going to say 20%, 30%. All the marginal drummers, I was a way above average, but not world class. And I didn't have enough staying power because I was not good enough at that point. I was a young man. But my friends that stayed in it, it came full circle. Today, they're as busy as crazy. They're doing super well. People want the human touch in their music, their emotions. In narrating, we want emotion. And what Johnny's saying in many ways are a great actor can create emotion that AI can't touch. If I was the narrator of a book, AI probably could do better. That's not my specialty. I'm not a great actor. I'm not saying I couldn't be with my performance background, but it takes dedication, practice, and somebody who continues to grow. Otherwise, you'll get passed up. If you're a crappy narrator, if you are not developing as an actor, then you're going to be like the drum machine. You could be replaced by a machine. If you stick with it and you are excellent and working toward excellence, man, there's a huge market for people. And I predict we'll have the same cycle. A bunch of people will drop out.
Yep.
The people that are really strong will get through that period, and it'll cycle back like many things in life. If you're old, I'm a little older, right? You see these trends and the way the latest and greatest is going to take over the world. AI will do very well, but it'll also do a lot of niches. It'll take over a phone system.
It's going to push us away and then come back again because people say, "I want a human being." People are going to say it. So don't give up the fight. Don't give up the ghost. Just keep working on being the best you can be, because that's how you keep working.
Well, here's Pete said, all coaches stress acting ability. I've done 150 audiobooks over the last 9 years. Not a single author or publisher has ever mentioned anything about acting ability. Everyone says right, wrong, voice. I realize people are using the voice to cover all. So what do you say about that? So none of the authors, none of the publishers have said anything about acting.
Well, because, an author writes a book. That's their art, and how you perceive it, the same way an artist paints a portrait or a picture. And then it's down to the viewer's perception, down to the reader's perception. I guarantee the author won't be able to put a finger on what he or she's done, won't quite understand it. But when they wrote, let's say it's a fiction story, and they wrote this scene, they were emotionally involved in that scene when they wrote it. They try to create it, make it happen. They don't look at it like an actor looks at it. Look like an author looks at it, or like a publisher looks at it. I guarantee publishers do consider acting. They may not say anything, and a lot of people don't know why they like a thing. For example, when Don drums, I say, "Oh my God," or whatever it is. I say, "Oh my, why is that so?" I don't know what you did. There's maybe a name for it, whatever the hell you did. I don't know. There's a name for it. I don't know it, but it was so wonderful. I know I liked it. In this film, I don't know why I liked it, but so-and-so, this scene is why is this so great? Why, when you're watching a television program or a film, are you suddenly glued into it? Because someone on there can act.
Right.
That's why, and you don't always know it, but I guarantee you respond to it immediately. This person did 150 books. You wouldn't have done 150 books if you can't act.
Right, and people are picking up on acting sometimes without you knowing you're acting. There are people out there that act because it's part of their background. Maybe as a little kid, they were always doing things with their siblings, and they were acting out scenes, and they didn't go formally and become an actor, but they still are doing something that creates emotion. And this whole business is about creating emotion. If you're doing a commercial, the whole point of a commercial is getting people to act and purchase something and to feel a certain way, but basically to move them to action. When you're reading a book, narrating a book, you're not reading it, you're acting it and looking to create the emotion in their mind that the author had in mind. And if you're not doing that, if you're getting hired regularly, by the way, then you're doing that on one level. You absolutely are doing it, whether you know it, whether they're saying it. They wouldn't keep hiring you. Go ahead, Johnny.
You're breaking up a little bit on me, and I don't know if it's happening to anyone else. It could be just my connection to you.
Oh, it could be.
Okay, but
How
that's just so when. But I will say that we use the word acting to mean so much, and it's very simple thing. So let's just define the term. We're talking about playing the author's truth moment to moment. In audiobooks, it's very organic in a theatrical way, but the performance is really cinematic, which is smaller, moment to moment feeling. And that's why I mentioned like my voice always sounds the same because I'm not raising it at all. It stays right here. It needs to stay here because this is where people talk. Most of these audiobook performances really is you speaking very closely to someone. Decide who that someone is and tell them what you want to tell them. We say acting, and all of a sudden goes, "I'm an actor." Because when I work with students, I ask them to talk a little bit about themselves and a little background to get to know them. Also, I want to hear what they sound like when they're just shooting the shit. Because all of a sudden, and then they were chapter 1, and all of a sudden it's like Dudley Do-Right walked in the room. I want to point that out because that's their acting sense, and that's not what we want. It's not like a spidey sense that tingles. It's how you perform the thing, how you tell the story.
By the
So,
way, Dudley Do-Right, not all of our friends would know who that is. That is a very, very mature reference, we will say.
George of the Jungle.
Okay. So that takes me,
I'm trying to.
Stephen asked
Who
this
else was?
question. So much of the industry seems to be geared to young ones. Where will I find the market for mature voices? I'm just getting started and I'm 67 years old. Well, Johnny, you're 85? What, 90?
Yeah. We don't talk about ages here, Don. I was around in the early. I was around when they made the Gutenberg Bible. I made some corrections in it. Here's the thing: it's not your age. There's a bazillion books out there. You cannot tell me every single one is a Hardy Boys mystery, or every single. I mean, there are books by most. There are older authors who write older books. There's plenty of work for you, plenty of work. If there's something which here's a weird thing. There is one of the biggest marketing things is romance, erotica, that kind of stuff. There's something called silver romance, which is you're divorced and you meet, and it's not necessarily erotica. Erotica's a romance is a happy ending. Erotica is a lot of happy endings. So it's some kind of version of that. So in a romance, a silver romance, I think if you're over 35 or 40, you can be silver romance. You're a silver fox. There's work out there for you. I've done a lot of this. I can't even limit you. You can't do the young teen hero book. Then you know what? Don't do them. There's history, there's horror, there's mystery, there's biography, there's nonfiction, there's, oh my God, the list is huge. To say it's a young person's market is to misunderstand the market and not to really understand your place in it. You need to make demos that are good for your sound and the genres you think you should work in and can work in. Okay? Don't do a demo where you're the male Hunger Games or whatever. I don't know what that would be, but don't do shit you can't do. Do stuff you're going to get hired for. Make your demo something that markets you.
Yeah, well, and here's the thing. The senior market is the biggest growing market, and silver romance, and there's just a bigger market. Not every senior wants to hear a 20-year-old telling a life story. And the opposite. So it goes both ways. So nothing against the 20-somethings. You have
a 20-year-old who writes a biography is like, what have you done?
Yeah.
And after high school.
Yeah, but when I was 20, I thought I was pretty spectacular, but that's an aside. So here's the thing. There's a market for a whole different set of people. And I do think that when you come into it, you may find initially a bunch of things for young people, or if you're younger, you may find a bunch of things for older. And so everyone thinks, oh, it's there's no market for me. Females sometimes come in and think, oh, there's no market for females. It's all male. Right? What do you?
There are just so you're never going to run out of work. There's just too many. There's so many books. Everybody's got a damn computer can write, and sadly, sometimes they do write books. your access to word processing software does not an author make, but the books are out there. So I guarantee you'll find material that'll be suitable for your age and sound.
Yeah, so that's pretty incredible. I see it too. People start off and they're 60, 70, and they find a niche. And there's not a lot of 70-year-olds that are great at this, unfortunately, unless they've been doing it a long time. But there's a market for people who are more mature, and there is a total market for people that are 20s and 30s and 40s. I mean, there's a killer market for them as
If
well, but
if
it's
they're
different.
talented.
Yeah, yeah, it'll come around. So
Mm.
one of the problems Johnny and I have is we're running right to the end here, and
Oh,
I didn't expect so many. I didn't know. We didn't know whether we'd have 20 people here or 400 people here, and the chat's just crazy full.
what
So
do we have? How many
we'll
people do
end
we
up.
have?
I don't know the whole number.
Oh,
I'll look. I'll get you those
no.
stats when we're all
I
done. I
want those
can't look it
stats,
up.
damn it. Stats.
Stats. Yeah, yeah,
Stat,
yeah.
stat. Why do you say that?
Oh,
Stat,
actually,
stat.
there's still 45 people on live, and there were 87 people on, and I'm watching the chats as much as I
Cool.
can. And so next time when we do it, I'm gonna have the chat window where people can see the chats in the screen at the same time as we're doing that. That's why I did it the way I did this here, because I have the technology next time to add in the chat window and to highlight chats and bring them up and have them show on screen. And so what I did was much more complicated than I would have liked on one hand, but I wanted that functionality for the next time we do this. And so Johnny and I, as soon as we're done here, we will talk about the next time. But here's what I guarantee you. We will be doing this sometime very soon again, because I had way more people asking questions than I was able to deal with. And I
Can
have a system that will come up and make it better for next time. Johnny?
can I just say, if you guys want to reach out, johnnyheller.com is my cleverly named website. You can reach me at johnnyhellervocoach at Gmail. I'm easy to find. And you should be as well, by the way.
Yeah.
Don't hide. You should be easy to find. So if you have any more questions, and Don, what's your website, or how can they
Yeah,
get you?
well, I have vojumpstart.com on the screen. Next time I'll have yours on the screen. What I'm going to do is in the show notes, I'll have Johnny's site in there so that if you didn't get it or you spell it wrong or whatever, I'll have it in the notes, the description below this video. And we'll do this again quite soon sometime, but I don't want to I want to talk to him first before I commit him to, hey, we're doing this in 2 weeks or a week or 2 days.
We can do it next week. We can
Okay.
find time.
So we will probably do it then based on his comment there. I predict next week we'll be doing this again. I will have a much better system for managing the chats and make sure that the sound is even better and the visuals will be better. You will see a whole bunch of upgrades. But here's the big deal. Like the rest of you, Johnny is a lifelong learner. If there's one thing I being around him, I got excited about, was this guy is not sitting still, even to the point where he has his own coach. He gets an outside perspective on what he's doing, and he collaborates with other world-class coaches so that while he's in sessions with them, he's stealing their best ideas, and they're stealing from him as well, and collaborating and trading information, and a constant learner. And I just think that's one of the attributes that the people that succeed in this business will acquire over time, is this mindset that they've never arrived, that they're just starting out. And sometimes I'm around Johnny and you can tell he's this sponge. He's asking questions of people. He's learning as much as he's helping other people learn. And that's something that I think that if you take that away from this, understanding that it's an ongoing process, not something that you do once, you don't take one course and and if there's one thing that I can tell you, he does these retreats every year. And what happens is about 95% of it sells out within the first, I don't know, couple weeks from when he announces it, because he gets so many returning people. And the weird thing about that, it tells you something. It's not a cheap event, but people get so much value that they come back. And in my life, when I'm looking at things of value, I like things that I find that people did repeat times, because that tells me that someone invested and they got enough out of it that they come back and they do it again. And every time you go to a Heller workshop, you're going to find out that a lot of the people there, they've already been with them before. And they come back because they get value And no matter what they invest, they get more out of it than what they're investing. So that's a real tribute to what he's been doing, and something that, because of his attitude, where he's always learning as well, you can learn something from the way he does it and how he coaches. So, Johnny, thanks for being here. We'll see you all next week, but I'll make an official announcement. Any last words there, Johnny?
No, that was very that's a you're you're like my mom building me up.
I'm
Thanks.
not as
Yeah,
good looking as your
I'm like
mom,
an
okay?
addictive drug.
No, but the thing is that here's the weird thing though. If people do their homework, they're going to find out that I'm telling the truth. When they go to your events, they come back, and it's
Yeah.
crazy. But it tells me something about the value they get. You don't go do something. If I go to a burger place and it's bad, I don't go back. If I go to a pizza place, if I go to a car mechanic that doesn't do a good job, I don't go back. You go back to things that have more value than what you invest, and you
I'll
deliver
also
that in
say,
spades. So thank you for
and
being here.
Don brings us to we both appreciate the giant value of fun.
Yeah.
It's, I mean, it makes a big difference.
Yeah, it does.
If what you're doing isn't fun, then do something else, for
Yeah.
God's sakes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right.
All right. Great to see you all,
Next week.
and we'll see you next week. We'll have an announcement of the exact time and date. But I appreciate all being here, and I promise you, you'll notice a bunch of upgrades on this. It'll be even better next week. Look forward to seeing you then. If you need something, get a hold of Johnny directly. Check the show notes. I'll have his direct contact information. If I can help you with something, be sure to get a hold of me. We'll see you all next week. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.